J'aime les voitures. Ma voiture est cassée. C'est la vie.
Yeah, don't worry about it, pal. It's going to be fine. We're back in the shed. He's with us because later on he'll help us with a little practical experiment. There's a great episode to come, lots to get through. So we're going with the Range Rover first, and this time I tackle the driver's footwell. Here it is. So we were left with this gaping hole in the driver floor. I got straight into templating it. Now, I should talk to you about this cardboard. This was left behind in the unit when I got there. It was a very lucky find. It's some kind of a catering box, and it's really thin card, but has some stiffness to it. Do not try and do this with corrugated cardboard. You will drive yourself nuts. So, look at this panel that I've created. It looks really good. It looks like it's quite close to the shape. A little bit of a tweak here and there once it's welded, or as I weld, and everything will be fine. No, I was being very ambitious to try and do a section this big. I don't have one of these panel beaters, bags, or even a proper set of hammers, so I had to cut this up. You'll see that in a second. The outrigger goes in here just to reference while the floor is going in. And here's the bit, the first piece that I cut out. This was the real trouble part. It has quite a few compound curves in it, and I had to, go back and forth, as you see. And there's a lot more time than is being shown here in between these shots, getting this panel the right shape. So you see I've cut some little nicks in it to allow it to bend to the right degree, and now I'm just hammering them back. And the far one there, you can see a gap. It's a bit too big. So you see in this panel that I've made, I've allowed for some filler material to fill that little gap. So I gave this chassis like a quick lick of underseal while I could get to it, and you'll always see me cleaning all the way around where I'm going to weld to get rid of the old underseal paint, whatever, and give the welder the best chance it can have. If I could afford it ever again, if I was doing something like this, I would dip a car and have a bare shell that's just, has some decent primer on it. It would make the job so much cleaner, easier and quicker. And by the way, I primed all of the other work here just to keep the air off it, and this was really cheap primer. I will be pulling this back and getting some decent etch stuff to hit it with later on. The last section in the floor, I kind of made the template in two pieces and then taped it together. It was just easier that way. And then primed that up once I'd made it, and in that went. Then all I had to do was kind of finish the welds because I just tacked everything, and we were up into the bulkhead section of the front footwell. The piece there was very like the other piece. I mean, this car rusted quite evenly from side to side, albeit more on this side. All the same places rusted out. And the last thing was up into the inner arch. I had to remove some of these ancillaries just for their own safety, and in went this piece, which really turned out nicely. It's, a lot of patchwork, but there you go. Maybe I'll do this again another time with proper panels, and I have to keep reminding myself that before I did all this, I had never done all this before. More Vogue next time. The Range Rover, I'm starting to be able to taste the Range Rover getting the hell out of the unit, which is going to be great for me in the Range Rover and great for me in the Esprit. So roll on that day. Now, I want to talk to you about this pile of tools here, because these came from buddies of mine, my sister, and it's just people coming out of the ether and saying, look, what you're doing is fantastic, here's some backup in this way. So to my old buddy Chief, my old buddy Mark, Anna, and the Northeast Vintage Classic Car Club, because they host the Mosney Car Show, which is what Anna gave me as my admission to that this year. And the Northeast Vintage Car Club, they always send everyone away who pays the admission with a little something, and this year it's a roll of spanners. So they'll go to Greece, and the situation in Greece will get easier. Also, Billy from Custom Composites, who you saw last episode, Billy said, do you need a scales? Because he kind of realized I'm going to get really neurotic about weighing things on the Esprit and trying to make them lighter. So Bill, thanks a million for the scales. Now, with all that said, and talking of the Esprit, here is the Esprit section, which is one of my favorites so far. Alright, by hook or by crook, this loom is coming out of this car in this episode. I naively thought by pulling the harness off the alternator we were almost there, but you remember the Kenlo fans that were fitted aftermarket? Well, there are 2 holes that run through the bulkhead from the passenger compartment to the engine bay. Here they are, and whoever put the fans in chose the wrong hole. So once I disconnected the 3 cables from the fan switch in the passenger compartment and from a sensor on the engine, I was able to pull them through into the engine bay so that everything could be pulled back through the right hole into the passenger compartment, which I did. So into the front of the car, I went to tackle the lights first to get the loom off them and hit a stumbling block. The lights are seized into the light pods. I only managed to get one out, but I figured a way of getting the harnesses off them without pulling the lamps. So that came out, not too much hassle there, but those light pods are going to be a bit of a headache later on. There is one major set of earths going through the body here onto the chassis. The bolt doesn't look original, it was totally seized anyway, and I took a grinder to it in the interests of saving time. Come on, off you come. Now, before I could pull this loom out through the bulkhead into the passenger compartment, there were still a few more things connected underneath the car, a sensor on a coolant pipe, the fan wiring, and also the horn. So off the front splitter came, and okay. The splitter's in great nick, but the under tray bolted to it, that's had a bit of a tough time. There's a fairly big hole in it, we'll have to fix that. And there are some aluminium panels, there are heat shields from the rad, I suppose, to protect the fiberglass. There's some fairly heavy dissimilar metal corrosion going on those. And whoever put the oversized Kenlo fans in, rather than adjust the length of the fan blades, which I might have done, or I might have picked the right fans, they just cut holes through the bottom of the under tray. So they're going to have to be fixed too. Anyway, just another thing on the list. So I began with the horns, and they released one part of the loom, and then it was on to the sensor in the cooling system. And apart from the wiring for the fans, which I didn't get footage of coming off because it was too awkward, that was it. I was then able to pull the loom through the car into the passenger compartment. Oh, it's dark in here. Where's the light? There it is. Oh, boom's at 7:35. So now, the entirety of the loom of this Esprit is sitting in the passenger compartment, and the only thing left to release were a few relays off the front cross member. Off they came, and I was able to pull this loom out of the car. It is now tantalizingly close to being split in two, this car. I cannot wait for that. I'm going to have to build a cradle for it, by the way. So, to run down how this loom sat in the car, first you've got your two tail lights and your number plate light. Then you've got your engine loom, the power window switch gear, and the window and mirror wiring themselves, the fuse box, the heater, motor, wiper motor and instruments, and the looms for the headlamps and their lift motors in the front. Now there are a few other little bits and pieces here, like the loom that takes power to the rear demist and the interior lamp. And up in the top right there is where a lot of the relays in this wiring system are located. All of this is getting put away in a box, and when we pull this box back out, we will get deep into 12-volt car electrics. In the meantime, let's go and see Bibendum and a little automotive wiring 101. I love that section on the Esprit, and some of you have commented before to say that you would be scared of the wiring. Well, what I thought I'd do, because there's no reason to be scared of wiring, especially on a classic car, it's so simple, I thought I would do a kind of 12-volt negative earth wiring, automotive wiring 101. And that's where Bibendum comes in. I found this guy in a little collectibles place in the west of Ireland, and I would say he must have been on a truck or something. Someone's let a little 12-volt bulb into his back so that he can light up, and there are two wires, a black one and a red one. Bibendum, by the way, this guy is as old as 1898. He is one of the oldest advertising entities in the world. And Bibendum, he's the Michelin man, but Bibendum is how he first appeared. And it is Latin, and it's from Horace. It's from a Horace poem. And it's an expression, the full phrase is Nunc est Bibendum, which means now is the time to drink. So I should probably have a beer sitting here, but I don't. Anyway, we are going to assume that this steel top on the bench and the vise is the body of your car, because the body of your car is part of your electrical system, and nobody ever says that, but if you think of it that way, it's a clearer picture of what's going on. So I'm going to use the black wire and earth it to the body of our car or the bench via the vise here. And now the red wire has become the positive. Okay, so what I'm going to do with the positive is I'm going to put it onto the positive pole of the battery, and I just have a little bit of steel here to hold it on there. And I have another piece of wire here. Before I connect all this up, I'm going to make a kind of a sideways analogy. This battery is kind of like the water pump in your car, in the sense that electricity, like the coolant in your car, flows, hence the expression, I presume, current. And the way a lead acid battery is set up, the current wants to flow from the negative side of the battery to the positive and out, but it's got nowhere to go until you give it a full circuit. So what we can assume here is that the red wire is full of electricity because it's trying to flow out here through bibendum, but it has got nowhere to go. It's like if the water pump was pumping your fluid in the engine, but there's a blockage. The fluid literally can't move, it can't go anywhere. The same deal is going on here. The blockage in this case is that there is no full circuit. There is not a connection between the steel of the bench and the negative pole of the battery. So what I'm going to do is take this other wire, put it on the negative pole, okay, a little bit of steel there to hold it on, and if I touch this down onto the steel top of the bench, which you remember is the body of our car, bibendum lights up because there is a full circuit here, and now the electrical current is flowing across the battery, through the red wire, through the bulb, lighting it, through the vise, along the bench top, and back into the battery, and it is a continuous cycle there. And this is what an electrical system is in your car, and your loom is just multiples of this taped together. There is one of these for everything in your car. So there's one for your wiper, there's one for your heater, your rear emister, your window lift motors, and they're all just bunched together, and each wire for each system is given a different color so that you can trace it. And that is it. And yes, there are relays and fuses and maybe rheostats and all sorts of things the newer the car is, but again, they're really simple concepts and we will deal with them another time. So on to something else. Valet Pro, my fantastic sponsor. I want to just say thanks to them because I kind of skipped over it the last couple of times. These guys are, as anyone who is sponsored will tell you, the ideal type of sponsor. They come along, they support you, and then they leave you to do whatever the hell you want creatively. You know, you make all the decisions. So I just want to say thanks guys at Valet Pro. I really do appreciate it. There is a kit to give away this time. It is going to Jed and Malcolm Young, father and son, who have a Jag that they kind of work on when they can. They don't get a lot of time to work on it. Guys, this pack is on its way to you because I love these photos of, here's Jed working on the car. I think he looks like he's doing the spark plugs, and I hope you get some fun out of the pack. I hope you use it together for some father or son time sometime soon. Enjoy it. Now, the final feature of the episode. I didn't tell you in episode 6 that there was a whole second side of the Italian garage story. Well, I went to see their workshop where, yeah, I don't want to be cheesy, but where dreams happen, because this place is like my dream. It has a little gentleman's lounge, it has a lift and some beautiful machinery and lots of space, and it's dry and just really cool. So I went with Adonis from Italian Garage to see it and have a little bit of a chat with him and paw over some of the seriously cool cars they have in there. Here it is.
My name is Anthony Kouros, and we are on the Italian Garage Restoration Center in Athens, Greece. You know, to restore and to make these cars like new, it's not a simple thing for us. So, well, I think for most of the people, if you want to do it with the right way. We spend the most, how we say, the most of the day here. We spend a lot of love. We are doing this with plenty of love and interest, and that's the very, how we say, the basic reason why we're doing this. It's not the money, it's not. That's why we don't have clients with the meaning of your bringing your car in. That's why we choose what we will restore, why and how. Finding this car was through some good friends of us make us a call one day and telling that he found an AC Frua and if we were interested to buy this car. Knowing the owner, he knew that it was a very nice car, a complete car. So we didn't lose time to think of it and we said yes, okay, there's a car in the US. We request all the analysis of the car, what was the condition, the photographs and things like that. And after that, we brought it here to Greece. And since then, we have done very few things, like separating the things and without the engine to start an engine overhaul and then the body to see the condition of the engine. Close to Philadelphia, I think, and then it took about a month and a half to have the car here through a container ship.
Did you drive it when it arrived?
No, it wasn't in a drivable condition. It was a complete but not drivable, and we didn't want, even if the guy would tell us that it is drivable, we wouldn't do this without have checked all the things first. But yes, it was nice seeing it there, sitting there, waiting for its time for the restoration. I don't know. I would give more possibilities for the nut and bolt restoration because we would love to see it as it was from the factory. No, usually we want exactly like it was with the factory specification, but having thought now that sometimes maybe for safety reasons new materials or new patterns would help cars to resist more in the time. Not in the brakes, to make upgrades from to change everything to be more comfortable or more daily for daily use. No, it's not something that we looking for. The Lotus bike, I think that in 2 or 3 months will be finished. It was an idea when I first saw the picture from the Lotus factory, 2014, the year that Lotus made the plan of its production. And I said with the first view that I will certainly make a bike like this for myself. So I start fixing the body like the factory did, and I think that in 1 or 2 months we'll be finished with the exterior, and then we will have to fit the engine and all the other parts. The Alfa Romeo and the Lancias, which I bought from a guy that didn't know what he had, and he just sold them like I wanted the frames just for their steel. And I told him no, because he told me that I can screw the emblems and give you as it just the steel. No, don't touch it, I told him. And so I bring them there, and I like this Lancia because Lancia means longi, which is the
Lancia spear.
Yes. And there is a hole, a big hole, like being from a
spear.
Yes, from a spear, and that's why I like this very much.
The longer I spent at the Italian garage workshop, the more I found myself going back to a little black number that was in the corner, the Simca 8 Sport. It's a little coupe. around 1950-ish, I think, something like that. And it's like the little Art Deco car that was 20 years too late. And if you ask me, this is a much cooler alternative to something like a Porsche 356. It's not as expensive to buy, and it's certainly a lot less common, I would say. And it just felt so cool, so gentlemanly, and had so many little details to it. I was really taken with this, and yeah, this is another one that's going on my list. Anyway, as I was looking at it, I noticed a gap in the wall behind it. And when I asked Adonis what happens back there, he said, well, every once in a while we'll get an expert in to teach us about some specific field of mechanics, and we'll have a couple of glasses of wine over an evening's chat. So here's what he said.
We say that this week we're gonna talk about the sparks, which is the correct type to use, or what we're doing in that case, on things like that. The other time for suspensions, other time for the upholstery. And we have a guest, and this guy tells his story, and we have questions. People must have questions, and we are giving to people the answer. Yes, maybe yes, but nice conversations happens there. So, and people come together and more close, and yes, I think that we have a lot of good fun. My wife's name is Anastasia in Greek, and you know, we wanted our marriage to be like how our daily life is, you know. So just because in the church we cannot do things like that, we said that after the church we are going to have some fun together, because we are going to live together. So Natasha drove the car with a trailer with 3 bikes in the back, my street bike, my motocross bike, and 2 bicycles, and she was wearing the dress and driving a car with full of bikes, and we went to a place near to the sea, and we had fun.
But whose idea was the mud? You.
Yes.
And she just said, okay.
Natasha, yes. I think that she loves me a lot after that.
But is her dress
Yes,
safe?
of course. No, destroyed.
Destroyed the dress.
Destroyed, yes.
But she was cool?
Yes. This is only passion, not job. It's fantasy and dreams. Here we have, our dream is to see that car, that Fiat Viotti, to see it as, because we're looking back to magazines of that era, and we allocate sometimes the specific car, and we want to bring it back to that condition. That's a dream. It has to do with job and money and things like that. I will do it like this, no matter how.
What about that place? I would kill for a workshop like that. In fact, if I can do it within this series, would you like to see a dream garage built in time lapse? So would I. What about the boat sitting in the middle? That's a Riva for anyone who's interested. I know I am. It's a Triton. I tried to import a classic powerboat from California years and years ago, and when I couldn't afford the shipping, it wouldn't fit in a standard container, and flat racking, which is they build a cradle and then that goes on the top of a ship and you've no guarantee it won't get washed off the ship. I bought a big motorcycle instead, and that's another story. We will get to that. So, on an unrelated matter, imagine if you built some of the world's seminal motor cars, and because of that, the world knows your name, but nobody pronounces it right. That has happened to a number of our greatest motor manufacturers, and you know, usually you say tomato, I say who gives a shit. But when it's somebody's name and someone who we love for what they've done, you know, we owe them the bit of respect. So here is Annalisa to give us a slap on the wrist. Hit me with it.
There are so many names that are related to the car productions, car design. I can only name a few. For example, the most known Lamborghini, Maserati, Ferrari, obviously, and then maybe Lancia will be the most mispronounced. Then we have names that are related to the design of the cars. For example, Giugiaro, Michelotti, Farina, Frua, Bertone, and there were only people whose name became a brand. And when so much time has passed between the beginning of the company and today's fame, then you start to forget that was a person, and that name is not just a brand, but it was a person. So it's important to keep it in mind.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Always nice to see Annalisa. Now, my Patreon, my patrons, I have some more new ones which still blows me away. Dan Moore, Malcolm Young, Adrian Johnson, Sarah McAllister and David Wiersky, who upped his existing pledge. Thank you, David, and thank you, guys. Do you know what? We crossed a milestone. My first kind of target was met on Patreon. It was a very modest target. I hope it keeps going. It is doing me a huge amount of good in terms of just funding what you're seeing. So thanks a million for that. There is a link in the description. Do you remember in episode 3 we met Graham Capel, and at the end I said this. This is the history of the Lotus 23 and the history of the Lotus 6. There was an Irish Lotus 23 racer back from the 23's heyday, and he raced his cars all over the world. He seems to have been very, very much into it. I'm going to try and find him if I can, if he's still around. Well, I went looking and I looked very hard, and it kind of got difficult, but what I managed to get was an address for the man whose name is Billy Bradshaw, and I wrote him a letter, old school, and he wrote me back. Turns out he was having a bout of ill health, so things were on the go slow, but I got a tip off through the Griffin story that Billy could usually be found annually at the Dalkey Vintage Car Show, which I'd never even heard of. Dalkey is an affluent part of Dublin, and it shows. This is the tiniest car show I've ever seen, but the calibre of the cars was fantastic, and it was a really great day, great buzz. So I went there and I met Billy, and I met lots of other really cool guys, and I'm going to sit down with Billy and bring you some of his stories, and there are some cool stories ASAP. I just wanted to tee that up. So in the meantime, please like, please subscribe, and please share. And on sharing, I want to say a special shout out to a guy who goes by the handle by Jedi XX. I don't know his name. He's Lithuanian. He has a Facebook page which I'll try and link to or give you some description for in the description. But he shared me to his 2,600 strong band of followers, and that resulted in a kind of spike in subscriptions of kind of 100, 150 subscriptions in one go, which is a massive deal for me. It's a massive deal for Soup, and I just wanted to say thanks, and I hope that this is some kind of a, back at you for by Jedi XX, and thanks a million, mate. All right, until we see you the next time, good luck.